First of all, let's get to Bills at Cowboys. The Cowboys -6.5. The over-under is 45. Worth noting here, Jerry Jones. Now, Brady, you should have to play along. It's my Jerry Jones impersonation. It's what I do. I like to do Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones. Jerry came out on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas and was asked about Jason Garrett's status and his thoughts on Jason Garrett. He said, when you're general manager, which I am, those coaches are out there at my ultimate decision. It's very much within my realm of purview, if you will, to not only be standing there as an owner, but be standing there as a general manager who put the staff there to begin with. People seem to think it's particularly harsh to have criticism, and they think when you look at the other side of the field and call a job well done, that might mean there's extraordinary criticism of the job you've done on the other side of the field. That doesn't mean anything. I don't know what he said, but I do kind of know what he said. He's allowed to criticize Jason Garrett, which is what he did. Now, if you listen to the whole interview, which I did on Tuesday morning, you understood that surprisingly, Jason Garrett wasn't getting flack from his boss, Brady, for not going for it on fourth down. He was getting flack for being unprepared for the conditions in Foxborough. That's basically what Jerry Jones is mad about. I was really surprised. He doesn't care if Jason Garrett uses analytics or goes for it on fourth down. Any thoughts to that and to whether Jason Garrett survives the season?
Yeah, I mean, you can't make it rain in Dallas, can you? I mean, I'm not really sure how you go about preparing. What do you pull the fire alarm in their indoor facility and try to get it to rain a little bit? Like as a former player, especially when you had a week of good weather and you knew that the forecast was going to show to be either rainy weather, either at your stadium or wherever you were going, what they do is they take the footballs out and they'd have a bucket of water. And before practice would even start, they'd have the center. They basically just dunk the football in the water, and they'd have the center work on quarterback-center exchange doing that. And then you go through your individual drills. Same thing. They keep wetting the football, basically to the point where the things become waterlogged and they're ruined. And the worst part about that is it's so unrealistic because you've got officials who are going to have towels. If you're playing home, obviously you have 24 footballs you prepare for the game, but you've got all the equipment you need to wipe them all off. If you're playing away, you still have 24 footballs and a bunch of towels preparing for that. So it kind of make a big deal about the conditions. The thing about the conditions is it usually is going to impact, obviously, not only ball security and somewhat to some degree performance, but really the decision-making. Because you have to make a decision when it's raining and it's windy out there, whether or not you're choosing to keep the game plan you have, which probably, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, has a fair amount of throwing the football, or if you're going to hunker down and say, we don't necessarily trust our ability to execute in that weather, we're just going to have to run the football, right? So it comes down on that sort of decision-making, and I guess in that instance, like, it probably played a factor, but I think it still had a little bit to do with the 4th and 7. Because to me, Jerry Jones is that type of guy. Jerry Jones is the type of guy when he says coming into the season, no. I want Jason Garrett to play for his future, to play for his contract. They haven't signed Dak Prescott either. Did they kind of want to see this sort of year from Dak Prescott under this sort of pressure, under these conditions? Dak Prescott's delivering. Jason Garrett, not so much. And I don't, maybe he wants to apply analytics, maybe not. I think in this case, he wanted to see Jason Garrett go for it on 4th and 7. He wanted to see them try to convert there and see if they had an opportunity to get a touchdown and maybe even go for 2 and try to win the game right then and there. I think that's the type of guy Jerry Jones is. And the problem is, too often times he's seen that Jason Garrett isn't that kind of guy.
No, that's right. Brinson, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was going to say, without rehashing too much of what happened because we already talked about that several times, Ryan. I was going to say, what do you think about this game against the Bills? We mentioned it on our YouTube exclusive that we look at early lines, but are you surprised that the line's actually gone down? It was Cowboys -7, now 6.5. The over under 45. What do you think about this matchup between those two teams?
Yeah, look, we always talk about this. Running game, defense, they travel, and Dallas is a different team at home. So I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of hate looking at the spread in this game right now. I'm curious which way the money's going to bring it down, because we could see a performance from Dallas that I think we're accustomed to seeing them play at home. Now, there's been examples of that go against that this year. Green Bay in particular is one that kind of sticks out, where if Buffalo could get off to a fast start, they could really take advantage of a Dallas team that might be licking their wounds or maybe, concerned about their coach's job security at this point. So I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Dallas will be fine. It should be a low-scoring game, so I like the under at this point. But that spread's still kind of big for me to want to pick one way or another. I think I'd want to see if it could maybe creep down into the 5.5 kind of range. then I feel more confident at that point, maybe taking Dallas to win by a touchdown, or potentially more. Whereas, maybe even lower than that. But, right now I know we're kind of close to that number, but I still need to see it tick down a little bit lower, at least so I think a touchdown wins it. Because I do think Dallas will be able to play well enough in this game defensively to limit Josh Allen, probably get a turnover, and maybe limit some of that rushing attack with Devin Singletary. He's been really good this year.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think Josh Allen has actually played better as the season's progressed, and that's obviously good news. The defense has been up and down, but this is what I always come back to. It's Sean McDermott in this case versus Jason Garrett, and Brady sort of touched on the issues with Jason Garrett. I'm not sure why Jerry Jones is suddenly surprised that Jason Garrett's not really good at his job. I mean, that's been the case pretty much since day one, and he is incredibly conservative. And my concern is late in this game, there's going to be a 4th and 7, for example, and Jason Garrett's going to punt. And Jason Garrett was asked about this on the radio, and he said, yeah, I don't have a 4th and 7. I don't feel comfortable going for it in 4th and 7. Here's the problem. They had a 2nd and 7 and a 3rd and 7, and they ran plays that left them with a 4th and 7. Clearly, you should understand that at some point late in the game, you may have to go for it on 4th down and run plays previous to that 4th down to get you in position to convert. So it's like he's not even paying attention out there. I know he went to Princeton. This is a horrible look for Princeton, by the way. So if they lose this game, I'd fire Jason Garrett right away. I think they're going to win because Dak Prescott's so good and the offensive playmakers around him. But it could come down to coaching decisions. And historically, in the Jason Garrett era, those coaching decisions have been terrible. And Debo put this in our rundown. The Cowboys this season against teams over 500, 0-4. And the Bills are a surprise team, probably going to make the playoffs, Brinson.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a pretty big collapse, although I would say that if the Bills are going to collapse, this would be where they start to collapse. If you look at their schedule, I mean, this is a tough game. Dallas is, it's a short week. They're at home. It doesn't feel like a Thursday night football or a Thursday football game, TNF game, because it's Thanksgiving, it's a tradition, it's holidays. We're used to watching the football around this time of the year, but it is a short week. It is a TNF game, technically, And when you look at the Bills' schedule, they're at the Cowboys, Ravens at home, at the Steelers, at the Patriots before closing against the Jets. This is not a high-scoring offense. It is a good defense, but if you look at them from a sort of a breakdown perspective, they're 26th against the run by DVOA, and they've given up the 4th most explosive plays in the rushing game in terms of defense. They are giving up 4.4 yards per carry and 104.4 yards per game. You can beat them by running the ball. I just curious how Kellen Moore approaches this. I mean, it would make a lot of sense. I think that this is a Jason Garrett meat and potatoes game, Brady, where he just feeds the ball to Zeke Elliott. They run the ball a ton. I could still see Josh Allen connect with John Brown a couple of times deep maybe, and you see a bunch of points in this game. Wouldn't be surprised if it went over. I tend to lean that way, but I kind of like Dallas in this spot. I think they can get up, and that puts the Bills in a really bad position, having to throw a ton while playing from behind. Wouldn't be surprised for a Cole Beasley revenge game touchdown.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's one of the matchups. I'm curious to see how they're going to utilize him. He's kind of a guy they like to use, move the sticks, short, intermediate routes, and he knows that defense well. So I'm sure he's going to have some, insider information for this Buffalo Bills offense and for Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator. John Brown has picked up his level of play at times. He kind of flashes as not necessarily a number 1 wide receiver, but definitely a solid number 2. And so I am most curious to see how those guys are going to match up with the secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. However, I do think the struggle is going to be on the Bills' offensive line, in particular, against that pass rush. Josh Allen's going to have to use his legs. He's going to have to buy time. He's going to probably have to be a part of the running game, whether it's designed or not, if they're going to be able to move the sticks and be successful in this matchup. So going back to the Kellen Moore question, do I think this could be a meat and potatoes game? Definitely, probably because I feel like that's your best chance. When you look at the pass defense for the Buffalo Bills, they're salty, man. And I think if you look at Tre'Davious White, most likely going to match up with a guy like Amari Cooper. So then Dak Prescott's going to have to look for some other options in order to work the football down the field. And I think that's very possible. But still, everything's going to have to be based on the rushing attack and be able to find some productivity there. And maybe even Dak Prescott, too, as part of that rushing attack, especially considering what's on the line for the Dallas Cowboys. They can just not afford to give up any more games, even though they're still at the top spot of the NFC East.
All right, so I've got Cowboys lean over. You're going to take the Bills, right, Brady? Unless it goes
I think I'm going to take Dallas at this point. You said, what, is it down from 7?
6.5.
Okay. At that point, yeah, I'd take Dallas. I'd lay the 6.5, even though, again, I don't necessarily like it a ton, but I do think they can win by a touchdown. I actually would take the under, though, as far as between the over-unders total score.
The unders typically hit on Thanksgiving, especially the lethargic, the later games.
All that tryptophan, man. They're all eating that turkey before the game.
They've all been sitting around watching Mitch Trubisky and David Blah play. Look at that. 1-7 Dallas against the spread. What? That's crazy. And the under does hit in those Buffalo games, as you can see for those trends. Ryan, who you got here against the spread officially?
I got the Bills covering, Cowboys winning.
Okay. By the way, I'll point out that this game is the first game in my can't lose, lock it up, moneyline parlay of the week. So we're going to put that out there.
Yes. And who do you like? You like Dallas or Buffalo?
I'm going to take Dallas in the money line.
Okay. All right.
Dallas, we're going to have 3 games involved. I don't want to spoil it. I'll tell you what the other 2 games are by the end of this podcast. Don't worry.
If they lose this parlay, do they go from eating turkey to maybe Spam? Is that what the substitute is? For this parlay, if they lose out?
The Cowboys or the
overall people who are taking your parlay advice, Will.
Yeah. You lose this parlay, you don't buy Christmas presents. That's the end of the story.
You're eating Spam. That's what you're eating. You're not having a Christmas ham or turkey or oysters in the Brinson household. You're having Spam.
Wrapping up a can of Spam and putting it underneath the tree and saying, "Merry Christmas, honey. I hope you had fun. The Cowboys lost to the Bills on Thanksgiving, and I couldn't buy you a..."
Can't even afford firewood for the fire, okay? You're buying one of those Duraflame logs, okay? You get one shot at it. You light that thing up. Hopefully it lasts for as long as you need it to.
You're throwing a frozen turkey in the deep fryer and watching it explode in your face.
Uncle Eddie's coming in with the RV. He's gonna, empty out his crap dispenser and then the sewer. Okay, don't worry about that though. He's gonna be there with the dickie on, ready to open gifts.
Yeah, cousin Eddie.
By the way, the Cowboys minus 322. Cowboys versus teams over 500 this season. 0-4. Yikes, that's not good. Dak Prescott has played well though, but five touchdowns, 6 receptions against teams that are over 500.